Hello, everyone, and thank you for tuning in to Poets and Quants' MBA Student Perspective Panel. Today, we're joined by current students from Notre Dame Mendoza, CMU Tepper, and Yale SOM. Thank you all for joining us. I'm
Thanks
your
for
host, Christy Blyzeffer of Poets and Quants, and please feel free to use the Q&A function to submit any questions you have for our panelists, and I'll do my best to get to those at the end of the session. So let's begin by getting to know our guests. Take a minute to introduce yourself, your MBA program, and a fun fact for yourself about yourself if you've got it. Andrew, let's start with you.
All right. Thanks for having us, Christy. My name is Andrew Shea. I'm a second year MBA at Notre Dame's Mendoza College of Business. I'm originally from Barrington, Rhode Island on the East Coast. And my fun fact is that I became a parent to twins here in my second year of the MBA program. So if there's any questions about being a parent in an MBA program, I'm your guy right now.
Congratulations. Talk about a
Thank you.
lot going on.
It's possible.
Catherine, how about you?
My name's Catherine Malizia, and I'm a first year at the Tepper School of Business at Carnegie Mellon University. And fun fact about myself is that I ran with the Bulls in Pamplona, Spain.
Wow. Gosh, that's pretty brave. That's amazing.
Brave
Megan,
or a little foolish, but it was fun.
yeah. No, brave, just brave. Megan, how about you?
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Megan Grossman. I'm a second year MBA candidate at the Yale School of Management, originally from Mechanicsburg, Pennsylvania. And fun fact, I'm a huge Philadelphia Eagles fan and actually had the chance to attend the Super Bowl this past weekend. So a lot of fun.
Oh my gosh, these have been the best fun facts that we've had in the history of the MBA student panel. So, congrats to all of you. That's amazing. Catherine, we're going to start with you on this next one. Talk a little bit about your MBA journey. What led you to pursue the MBA, your thought process, and what you learned through the application process and maybe what you might have done differently.
Sure. So I actually came from a pretty non-traditional background. I studied biobehavioral health at Penn State, and after graduating, I worked for a midwifery organization, a nonprofit in Haiti. And so I spent a couple years there, was in love with the work, really passionate about it, and saw a lot of great work being done, but realized there was a gap in the business understanding. After that, I came back and started a small business with my sister. And we did that for several years and we loved it. But again, it was, in that sense, I was able to wear different hats and start learning about the different aspects of business. But there was still a gap in the educational component. And so whenever I was considering what my next steps would be, the MBA felt like such a great fit. And it was in talking with people and exploring different programs that I really felt kind of this was the right move for me. Through my journey, one of the best things that I did was visit schools, visiting schools, speaking directly with administration and students. One panel that they did here at Carnegie was an opportunity to have a completely unplugged panel. So all of the administration left, and it was just a student panel. They were like, ask us anything. If you're curious about what we do for fun, what it's like living in Pittsburgh. And it was really nice to get that honest one-on-one environment. So that would be my recommendation for anybody who's exploring the program, is to really ask, of course you want to ask about recruiting, you want to ask about academics. Those are top of mind. But ask different questions too. I mean, Andrew's a new parent. What does healthcare look like at your school? What do these things? These are huge things to consider that I wasn't really asking.
Yeah, that's so interesting. I haven't heard about, just administrators leaving the room before. That's very refreshing. Megan, how about you?
Yeah, so for context, I graduated from Bucknell University with a degree in chemical engineering, worked in various technical roles with Avery Dennison for 4 years prior to business school. I think my motivation in applying really loved a lot of aspects of my job, but I think the metaphor, not to go back to football again, I felt a lot like a quarterback. Like I had a lot of flexibility in terms of how I executed strategy assigned to me, but wasn't necessarily like in the coaching position, developing strategy for an organization. Realized all those positions to which I aspired, all those individuals had some degree of like business education. So really wanted to invest the time to kind of double down and kind of strengthen my foundation with more like business related skills and acumen. So Yale SOM has been the perfect spot for that. I think Catherine, you hit the nail on the head, really taking the time to speak with current students. I know this isn't necessarily something that everyone can do, but if you have the time and resources, I think a differentiator for me was actually visiting the campuses as well. I'm a huge believer that, all these top business schools have the professional resources to get you where you want to go. Career wise, it's all about where you see yourself being happiest for 2 years. And I think having the chance to speak to students, pick up on those cultural nuances really helped me in my decision-making process.
Yeah, absolutely. And Andrew.
I also come from a pretty non-traditional background, something that's actually becoming more and more traditional across MBA programs. So I spent 10 years in the Navy prior to coming to Mendoza. So I flew helicopters for 6. I did legislative affairs for 4, all while in the Navy. And the MBA has become a very well-trodden path by veterans, as I'm sure Catherine and Megan know from their programs. Large veteran cohorts across all the top MBA programs these days. So I kind of followed that well-trod path because I knew I was done in the military. We were ready to settle down. My wife and I had been moving around for 10 years. We're like, you know what? It's time to put down some roots. And I knew an MBA would be a good path to kind of establish myself in the business world, but I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do. I left government relations more or less for the Navy in Washington, D.C., and didn't want to go be a lobbyist. That wasn't really interesting to me, but saw the MBA as a place where I go explore a bunch of different avenues, industries, functions, and have done just that. So that's been great, and the plan kind of worked out in that manner. But throughout the process, and something that probably a lot of people on this call are experiencing, is I kind of waffled back and forth on whether or not I thought the MBA was right for me. And as Catherine and Megan said, going and visiting campuses, anytime I left a campus, I felt I was motivated and like, okay, MBA is the thing for me. But then I'd open that GMAT book and I'd be like, ooh, the MBA is not the thing for me. And I let the GMAT scare me for like the course of a year, to the point that I was like, nope, not going to do the MBA. And then finally I got some tough talk from a mentor and they're like, you need to study for the GMAT and get into this. And I got into the books. I took a course. It was a good forcing function to get me to do it. So learn from me. Do not be scared by the GMAT. I ended up getting scared by the GMAT and taking the GRE, which actually worked out much better for me, as I'm sure it might have for Megan and Catherine as well. So that's my advice, and what I would have changed is just rip the Band-Aid off and don't be scared of the test, because the school and the experience is so much more than the test in the long run. And nobody here talks about what their GMAT score was or any of that process. It's all in the rear view at this point.
Yeah, I think that is great advice. It's probably way more intimidating than people like to admit, that those tests, for sure. So Megan, let's talk a little bit more about some of those key factors that really kind of put you to Yale. You were talking about visiting a lot of campus, but what were the factors about Yale that really kind of made that your school of choice?
Yeah, there are kind of several factors that played into this. I mean, for me personally, one thing was being in the Northeast. I had been living in the Midwest for 4 years and definitely consider myself a Easterner. So that kind of like helped limit my search. Then I was looking for student bodies that were very tight knit and also where there was a lot of opportunity to kind of get involved on campus. That was very meaningful to me in my undergrad experience. I've always self-selected to groups that are a little bit more engaged on campus. And that kind of naturally drew me to Yale SOM. I think the community that we have here is special. I think New Haven's like the perfect college town, in my opinion. I shouldn't say no one, there are very few individuals that are living in New Haven prior to coming to Yale SOM. And I think that just really inspires a lot of people to lean into the special community. I think you also would be very hard pressed to find an SOMer that's not engaged on campus in some capacity. So I really like this kind of special cyclic culture that we have in terms of giving back to the school and kind of continuously improving it for class years to come. So that's ultimately what drew me to New Haven.
Yeah, great. Andrew, what about for Notre Dame?
Well, for Notre Dame, I grew up in an Irish Catholic family, so that's one thing, and you'll find that a lot here. There's a lot of kids who grew up and watched Rudy and became Notre Dame football fans. So I would say 50% of the class are just Notre Dame homers. But for me, there's a great relationship between the U.S. Naval Academy, where I went to college, and Notre Dame. So the U.S. Navy saved the University of Notre Dame during World War II because they didn't have enough students because everybody was off to the war. So actually, the U.S. Navy and the U.S. government funded Notre Dame for a number of years. There's always been a tight relationship between the two, which is a fun fact. But so that kind of initially caused me to apply. Similar to Megan, I'm a kid from the Northeast as well. Most of my search was focused in the Northeast, but I was like, you know what? Like, I visited Notre Dame, and there's something special in the water there. So that was kind of the initial impetus to apply. And then once I got on campus and started talking to folks, um, everyone knows somebody that went to Notre Dame or has a crazy uncle that cheers for Notre Dame, and you know how strong that brand is. And I realized very quickly that would be a huge advantage, having that alumni database and that alumni network to leverage as you search for a job. So that was what kind of got me in the door. And then what's kind of kept me here and was what convinced us to say, okay, Mendoza is the place for us. My wife and I came out for an admitted students weekend. I had been waitlisted and gotten into a couple schools on the East Coast, but we came here and it was dreary. It was the middle of March. South Bend's not great in March. Sorry, admissions, if you're listening, but it's not great in March, as I'm sure some other of these schools are as well. But there's a warmth to the place, and everybody's excited. And every person I met said, "Welcome to Notre Dame." And it was like 2 days in, they're still saying, "Welcome to Notre Dame." So there's something special here that kind of spoke to us and said, "Hey, my wife's from California. I'm from Rhode Island. Like, let's take a chance on Northwest Indiana." And we've absolutely loved it. And the motto of the school, or the marketing tagline, is "Grow the Good in Business." And I've found that really weaves itself through not only the job search process, but also the academic experience as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And Catherine, how about at Tepper?
Sure. So, as I mentioned, coming to schools and visiting in person was really the game changer, because I was debating. I have family all over the East Coast, and do I want to go to New York? Where do I see myself really being? And it was in the visit at Carnegie Mellon at Tepper it was amazing. We had different panelists come, and the Master's Career Center. I still remember listening to one of them speak, and she said, "Listen, you will leave my office sometimes and you might be upset. You might cry, but it's because I'm pushing you. I'm trying to make you better. I'm not trying to make you cry. I'm trying to make sure you're doing everything that you can. I want to give you all of the tools in your toolkit to succeed." And just as somebody who is very driven and motivated by a challenge, I saw myself fitting in really well with that culture of not competition and, stepping on each other's toes, but more of, we're going to push each other to be our absolute best, to present our best, and to succeed.
Yeah. Oh, great story. Thank you. So Andrew, let's talk a little bit more about then that learning experience. Talk about the course load, the classroom discussions, group work versus individual work. Just tell us a little bit more about what it's like to be a Notre Dame MBA.
Happy to, yeah. So we're on the quarter system here at Notre Dame. So they call them mods, which modules. But for all intents and purposes, they're quarters. So we'll do a 7-week quarter, and then it'll be a week-long kind of like academic style sprint course. And that can be experiential learning, where you go off and do a consulting project domestically or internationally. And then you'll go into your fall break, and then you'll do your next quarter before the long winter break. So your first year is core curriculum. So we're a 105 person program for my class. So very small. So there's really only 2 sections, if you will, but those sections intermingle. You're not stuck in section A or section F like you are at some other schools. So you're always commingling with your other classmates, and it kind of feels like a small high school at times in the best way possible, because you know all of your classmates. So for me, being in a small program was a big advantage. I'm a relationships guy. I love learning people's stories and getting to know them. So that was a big draw for me. So we'll stick to our core curriculum, and then now in the second year, you're picking more electives and stuff that's aligned with your passions. And 2 kind of courses I wanted to briefly highlight are our Business on the Front Lines, which was a 2-quarter long experiential learning program where we went and worked for a gold mining company in Africa. Now, that doesn't sound necessarily like growing the good in business, but we got to go to Africa and we got to help them with the environmental offset program, where they were helping disadvantaged communities with their economic livelihoods. So we got to spend 2 weeks consulting in the field, working with a Fortune 500 client, and taking back solutions to them on how they could best deal with those obligations that they had. And then another one I'm taking this quarter is called Why Business. There's not a lot of, you can opt into as much Catholicism as you want here at Notre Dame, being a large Catholic institution. But this does a really good job of kind of mixing business ethics with Catholic social thought. And it asks the question of like, can capitalism exist if you want to be just and virtuous as well? And we take a basic ethics course as well, but this has been my favorite class to date. Jim Otteson teaches it. He's a PhD from University of Chicago, as close as you can get to being a modern day philosopher. It's a 12-person seminar, and I've had some of the most insightful discussions I've had since my undergrad years, and I've truly loved it. So you can kind of get the social good and the hardcore business technical training here, which was a big thing for me.
Interesting. If I was mean, I'd put you on the spot and ask you if it was possible, but we'll leave that for the
That's my final presentation in 2 weeks, so tune in.
Okay. Great. Catherine, what's it like to be an MBA at Tepper?
One of the reasons that I chose to come here was because my background is non-traditional, and I was like, wow, Carnegie Mellon is known for quantitative skills, and I really want to grow all of those, and it has challenged me.
Yeah.
It definitely, I will say the professors here are really wonderful, but they'll push you, they really challenge you, and it's really great. The combination, I liked your question about the group work versus individual. One thing that I'm astonished by every day is just the cultural and professional diversity in my classrooms. And it's something that I'm learning from small conversations with my peers every day to the big group projects. And what do business models look like here versus in northern India versus in Korea versus, so learning that and just being able to have those really open conversations and being able to ask some of my peers, what led you to be an MBA student at Tepper School of Business right now? That has been incredibly eye-opening. So I think that's been the biggest takeaway of and I'm still in my first year, so I have a lot of great things to look forward to. But right now, I know that those are some lessons that will stick with me forever.
Absolutely. And it's so important, today when you're going to be working with teams who may be they may be from all over the world. Megan, how about at Yale?
Yeah, so we're also on a quarter system. We get broken up into cohorts of about 70 students. But I think it's really special within that cohort. We have smaller learning teams. A lot of the learning is very collaborative at Yale SOM. So within this team of 4 to 5 individuals, they're very purposefully built to make sure that there's a lot of representation from like pre-MBA backgrounds. So for example, I really leaned on my, the CPA in my group when we were going through some of the accounting homework, and hopefully I was a little bit more helpful going through like our operations class. The first year is very focused on core. I think Yale integrated perspective like approach to the core was really unique and another draw for me to Yale SOM. Not necessarily looking at siloed like topics, but like different perspectives and stakeholders in business. So for example, like our CEO like capstone class or workforce that was more of like a human capital kind of base class. So that's primarily the first year. Two things that I think are neat about Yale SOM, especially as you move into your second year, our international requirement, so cool. One of the highlights of my experience at SOM, I had the opportunity to travel abroad with a professor in class to Uruguay over spring break. So really cool learning immersive opportunities in lots of different countries. There's exchanges with other universities around the globe. So lots of cool ways to get different perspectives. And then second, a lot of your second year is very elective driven. So I found a lot of like fulfillment taking classes, not only at Yale SOM, but broader Yale campus. For example, right now I'm enrolled in a class at our Jackson School of Global Affairs that's taught by the ex-president of Columbia, not the university, the country. So like really cool opportunities like that. So it's been fun to take advantage of not only Yale SOM's like curriculums and wide offerings, but broader Yale campus as well.
Yeah. Do you mind sharing what project you worked on in Uruguay?
Yeah, no, it was really cool. We kind of got to look at business from different perspectives and did like a small consulting project for a local startup up within Uruguay. It was really helpful because I ended up doing my internship within consulting, so got a little bit of experience before kind of hitting the ground running in the summer. So a lot of fun.
Very great. Well, Catherine, do you want to tell us about the extracurricular opportunities at Tepper, and are there any that you're involved in?
Absolutely. And for anybody who is exploring MBA programs, this is a great question to ask. It's really interesting to hear what people are involved in outside of school. I'm actually was elected the president of the Graduate Business Association, so that has been an amazing experience. Being able to work with the different offices within Tepper, between academics, alumni, our Accelerate Leadership Center, it's been really wonderful to see kind of that side of things and how it operates, and to be able to speak with my peers and talk about what is important and what we want to see in the program and who we want to see in the program and how we want it to grow. It's been amazing and wild, and I love it so much. I'm so grateful to have the support of my peers and the administration. So that has been great. But I'm also involved in the wine club, and I love that too. We
Exactly.
have we have an outdoors club that climbs every week, and they do different skiing events, and there are so many different things, that different ways to be involved. I have also enjoyed being part of the Tepper Women in Business. TWIB has been a really great place, especially for supporting women in the MBA. There, I hope to see more women. I want to see those numbers grow across the board. I think that that's something that everyone is really passionate and excited about. So being involved with TWIB and being able to collaborate with businesses that come in and support these events that we're running is really incredible. So any women in business clubs at any university, ask them what those programs look like, ask what the student government body looks like, and find the fun clubs like the wine club.
Yeah, great mix there. How are you able to balance all that with the coursework?
It's been a learning curve. It definitely is a lot, but as I said, having the support of so many people, it's walking into a room with my peers and people saying, "Hey, how can I be involved? What can I do to move an initiative forward?" So having that peer-to-peer support, and then having administration who is also willing to pick up some things whenever I'm like, this week we have midterms. It's not going to happen for me. That it's been really leaning on my community.
Great. Megan, how about the extracurricular opportunities at Yale?
Yeah, I always say I think one of the biggest challenges of a MBA program is finding that balance. I think the metaphor I like to use, like MBA programs are definitely like a buffet. Like there's so many wonderful foods and there's only like so much room that you have on your plate. And everybody's plate is going to look different. But I've really appreciated how flexible Yale SOM's approach is to clubs and organizations. There's no like dues or anything like that. So technically you could be a member of every club if you wanted to, which has been nice for me because I consider myself like a casual member of some clubs and then probably more involved in clubs that give me more like fulfillment and purpose. So for example, for like the Business and Environment Club, I'm probably more of a casual member. I attend some lunch and learns that are like interesting to me. But then there are clubs like Consulting Club where I've spent more of my time like as this year's president, or I'm helping to plan our Women in Business conference, or like to stay active. I'm a member of our hockey club and our SOM United like soccer team. So I really appreciated it. I guess if anybody finds the key to finding, complete balance in an MBA program between activities like recruiting, like academics, let me know because it's still something that's a work in progress. But I think Yale SOM's like extracurricular structure makes it really flexible to flow in and out to your liking.
Yeah, I think you're going to need a second plate. You've got a
Yeah,
lot on.
exactly.
And Andrew, how about at Notre Dame?
I echo Megan's sentiment needing to balance it all on one plate, especially with a wife and two kids. So it's been I've had to be very selective about where I spend my time. The first year I obviously had some more time. This year, not so much. I'm the president of the Veterans Club, so that takes up a lot of my bandwidth. We've got 30 members, and it's a pretty tight knit group of people with a similar shared experience. And we host a number of events. We hosted our first kind of school wide dining out this year. It's a traditional military dinner. We kind of hosted people and brought them in to kind of show a little bit, a peek behind the curtain of what military customs and courtesies look like. I'm a case coach for the consulting club, so helping people prep for their consulting interviews this year. And then last but not least, Notre Dame has a very rich intramural tradition and history. So We actually get MBAs actually get mixed up against undergrads, which is hilarious when you get a bunch of 30-year-olds trying to play basketball against a bunch of 19-year-olds. But Notre Dame hosts the world's largest outdoor 5-on-5 basketball tournament every spring. It's called Bookstore Basketball, and it happens on courts over by the university bookstore. I'm proud to say that we made it to the Sweet 16 before getting eliminated by a team with 3 football players and 2 varsity basketball players. So that was embarrassing, and we only blew 1 Achilles on the team for the season. So, but on the whole, lots of opportunities. I'll touch on football later, but there's a ton to get involved with here on campus, and I was a little worried coming in that maybe you're, as an MBA, you're kind of on the outside looking in on the rest of the stuff here at Notre Dame, but you're very much part of the campus community and involved in all the opportunities you're open to.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Well, let's talk about that all-important MBA network, which I think, is a big draw for a lot of people looking at the degree. Tell me about what your school, provides in terms of tools, platforms, events to help students connect with alumni, and maybe with mentors that you can connect to. And then if you have any personal stories about how you've benefited, please share. And Megan, let's start with you.
Yeah, no, I've had a very positive experience with the alumni base with Yale SOM. I think pleasantly surprised. I think that was one of my bigger concerns coming into a school that's definitely smaller and younger in its tenure in terms of business school. But I found all alums to be so engaged and really excited to help SOMers. The Yale Connect app is the entire directory of all the Yale SOM alums and has been super, super helpful for me, not only in recruiting, but also if I'm just interested in learning about different industries. Additionally, Yale SOM has like a opt-in mentorship program. If you do want to get paired with an alum, there's plenty of opportunity for that. I've also been pleasantly surprised in terms of the support that I've gained, not only from like Yale SOM alums, but Yale like college alums as well. So that kind of like Yale spirit extends beyond the walls of the business school. I think because we have such a tight-knit community and people love their experience so much when they're at SOM, SOMers are, always so excited to help SOMers. And it was pretty critical during my consulting recruiting trajectory, actually. Most of my closest connections during recruiting were either alums themselves or individuals that were introduced to me by alums. And that kind of support continued as I entered my internship. Even from firms I didn't end up matriculating to, I have alums still checking up on me, asking how I'm doing, if I need any advice. So very positive experience here.
Wow, that's great. Andrew, tell us about Notre Dame.
Happy to. So the reason you come to Notre Dame is for the alumni network. It's exceptional. The amount of people that come into Little South Bend, Indiana, every weekend for a football game is pretty eye-watering. And throughout those weekends, there are happy hours, there are events that you can attend, and you'll have the CEO of Deloitte, who is not a grad, but his dad went here, or his a family member went here, and he just came to business school because he's passionate about the place. He wanted to go to a football game. So you get a lot of, the fall is just a bonanza of people on campus that you get to interact with, and the business school is really good about scheduling events and funneling those people into the business school. There's a business school tailgate every Friday that happens in the courtyard of the business school, where it's an open bar for anybody that wants to come by, and you'll never know who you're going to meet at those. Those are always a must attend. And then similar to SOM, we've got an alumni database as well, but it's the whole school. So I could reach out to somebody who is an undergrad here. And the nice thing is, through my consulting recruiting as well, I probably, some classmates kept much better databases of who they reached out to than me. But I would say, if I was sending somebody a cold email, 95% of the time I was going to get a response back. And people wanted to talk about Notre Dame football. And then they'd say, we talk about that for 25 minutes. And then the last 5 minutes, they'd be like, all right, we haven't talked about anything, but how can I help you? And they were more than willing to help out and get you connected with the right people that weren't Mendoza folks or Notre Dame folks. So there's a certain passion to this alumni base. And we really saw it this year with Notre Dame going to the national championship, that just people were excited to talk about Notre Dame and excited to get involved. And I've seen that across the board for my classmates as well. So it's a really strong alumni network. And our career development office is run by what we call a double domer. So she went to undergrad here and her MBA here. So she's young, she's youthful, she's energetic. She worked at Google and McDonald's before here. So she brings in fresh perspective, which is greatly appreciated. And she's somebody you can always catch weekly for coffee and say, Mary, I need help. What am I doing here? And she'll help redirect you and get you in touch with the right people. So it's been nothing short of fantastic.
Oh, wow. So valuable. And Catherine, how about that? Connections with alumni from Tepper.
That was something that, so coming from a Penn State undergrad where we have a big football culture and we have a lot of alumni coming back for those weekends, Andrew and we can be friends now that the games are over, but a little rough there. But no, that was something that I really considered coming here because I came from such a strong alumni network. And I've been really pleasantly surprised and impressed by how responsive every alumni has been, whether I'm reaching out through our really widespread LinkedIn networks, and again, it's kind of like I think Andrew or Megan mentioned, whether they're undergraduate or graduate, the fact that you are part of this community, people are really excited to reach out to you and to speak with you and always respond. And it's a really, really good network. It was funny. My brother works in New York at Alliance Bernstein, and he brought a couple of his colleagues to Penn State. This was years ago for a tailgate, and met a bunch of them. It was great. Fast forward to this fall, and one of his colleagues was coming to Carnegie, and I sent my brother a picture, and I said, "Hey, do you recognize this guy? He looks so familiar. Do you happen to work with him?" And he said, "Catherine, you hosted a tailgate that he came to." And so, he came on campus and we got to catch up, and it was wonderful. So all of our connections through our alumni network and the alumni office, again, so strong. They're doing so many things to try to bring a lot of alumni back. I think that there's been a gap across the board with just what did COVID do as far as like hurting some of those relationships or making them a little bit strained. And the alumni are back and they're so excited to be part of the campus and part of the community. And I'm just so grateful for our alumni office and all of the alumni that have been so supportive through our recruiting and just building the network.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. So Andrew, what do you think is kind of the the hallmark of your Notre Dame experience so far, or maybe what are you looking forward to?
I would say the hallmark experience so far is football. The business school looks out at Notre Dame Stadium, so you sit in class and you're like dreaming of Saturday at times, which is pretty fun. And the program's great because we have about 20% international students in the program, and every fall, the first week, they do a football 101 where a second year group will do game tape and explain how American football works. So then all students are granted access to, it's a ludicrously low price for a student ticket for the year. So you get to go to all the games. You get to sit between the sophomores and juniors in the student section as the grad students. And I would say 80% of the MBA program goes in and sits together every game.
Wow.
And Notre Dame does these push-ups in the air where people get on your hands and shoulders and you push them up. So the whole student section looks like waves after a touchdown. And you'll have like, I did push-ups for one of my classmates, Harshit from India, and he was giggling like a small child as a 28-year-old man. And he comes down, he's like, "That's the most fun thing I've ever done." And it's really cool how the whole school unifies around tailgating and football. Whether you like to drink at a tailgate or not, there's something for everyone. And it's South Bend, Indiana, Happy Valley, Penn State might disagree, but it's the happiest place on earth on Saturdays, and there's a really cool energy in the air, and we'll deeply remember that.
That sounds so fun. Catherine, how about at Tepper?
For me, it's my peers. Like I said, working in groups together academically, but it's also the really intentional things that we do together. So we did, similar to Andrew, we had an international student fund that's an alumni supports so that we can do some fun cultural activities. And we had a big Super Bowl watch party. And it was so much fun to be able to watch together and be like, okay, this is why this is important. And okay, now everybody be quiet because it's time for the halftime show. And this is really significant. So those connections have just been really wonderful. That's been the hallmark. We are a smaller program, and that can come with some strains, but everything that I've gotten out of it has so much outweighed that. and just being able to have real relationships. I can walk through the hall and say hello to every person that I pass. I can honestly say that. And I have connections and genuine relationships with everybody here. I'm learning, like I said, we have a really large veteran community here as well, and learning from their experiences and where they're coming from. And then our international student population, they just bring something new to the table that I would never understand, and the things that we can bond over from my time working internationally and their travels, and oh, how was your customs experience this time? And it's funny the things that you bond over, but I can honestly say that these are relationships that I'm building that I think will last a lifetime.
Oh, very good. Absolutely. And Megan, how about at Yale?
Yeah, I guess it's a consistent theme, but I think again the sense of community and almost like how inspiring like I've realized collective action can be, and it manifests in so many different ways at SOM through various like favorite memories. I mean socially, like a lot of the collective action coming together around like the Harvard Yale like tailgate week, lots of festivities around that. Even when we come together for purposeful things, so we always host a big auction night in the spring, raise money for some of our peers that are going into the nonprofit space that may not have like a living stipend for throughout the year. So cool things like that. It bleeds into recruiting. I've been inspired by how generous second year students have been in terms of dedicating their time to help first year students. And even first year students helping first year students, just a sense of like camaraderie that an inherently competitive process like brought about at Yale SOM was very, again, inspiring. And it bleeds into the classroom as well. Like 50% of my learning in the classroom is from professors, and it's great, but the other 50% is from my peers and how generous everybody is in sharing their perspectives, whether that's different industries, functional areas, different like countries. That's definitely going to be my biggest takeaway for sure. Just the power of people coming together and collectively like working towards a greater good. Yeah.
Oh, very inspiring. Well, Catherine, let's talk about the biggest piece of advice to all the viewers that are tuning into this right now. Are people considering an MBA or looking at which schools to choose? So what is your biggest piece of advice to someone considering an MBA in general or Tepper in particular?
My biggest piece of advice is to rip the Band-Aid off and try.
Yeah.
Um, we talked about the exams to get in. They're not fun. They're tough. They challenge you. But what some of the best advice that I got was, you can do this. You're capable, and you got to just take a shot for it. And I really do. Whenever I talk to even like some of my cousins, I'm like, hey, have you considered an MBA? Because it's applicable to any industry. If you get a business degree, it will help you no matter what you do. If you're working nonprofit, if you're working corporate America, if you want to start a business, almost anything that you do, you're going to take away something so valuable. So go in, ask questions. No question is a silly question. I really believe that. And try.
Yeah. Oh, great. Thank you. Megan, how about you?
Yeah, I think we've alluded to this, but I think really like business school decisions are such a personal choice. I think there's a lot of temptation to get caught up in lots of different things like rankings or like kind of perceptions of the school. But ultimately, like I mentioned, I believe all these business programs are wonderful and they're going to have the resources to get you where you want to go professionally. It's all about where you see yourself being the happiest. I think definitely my business school journey picked up a lot of different cultural differences between the schools that you really can't ferret out from a website. So do your due diligence and talking to students and really understanding what the experience is like. And make the best decision for you. No Reddit page is going to be able to tell you what the best decision is for you. So go wherever you feel like you're going to be the happiest. And then once you decide, make the most of the 2 years. It simply has been like the most wonderful of times. I'm growing personally, professionally, academically, and it's devastating that it's coming to an end in a few months. But how lucky am I to have something that I'm going to miss? So take advantage of every opportunity you have.
Yeah, absolutely. And Andrew.
I would say take the time to figure out why you want to be in an MBA program beyond just your standard admissions answer, because we know that's not the whole truth. For me, like I was obviously pretty conflicted coming into to business school. Is this the path? Is this the path for me? but I ended up finding my reason, and it's something you're going to have to go back to throughout your time in the program, especially during your first year fall recruiting. If you're going for something highly competitive like consulting or investment banking, you're going to find that you're going to say, why the heck am I doing this? Like, I want to get out and go be a ski bum, because like that's what I always tell my wife. Like, can I just be a 6-figure ski bum? Like, is that in the marketplace? Because that's what I'd like to do right now. But having that, and this is going to sound very business schooly, but like having that why, and like knowing that, and there are people in your life that can hold you accountable to that, of like, hey, you're doing this because of these reasons, and these are the things that you value, and this will help you get there. Has been very important for me as I've dealt with life changes and a growing family, and kind of still I'm going somewhere I want to, but still trying to figure out if that's the thing that's for me in the long term. Kind of knowing where your compass points is important for me, and that's something I cannot recommend enough. And take the time to figure out why this is for you.
Absolutely. Well, thank you guys all so much. We really appreciate your time, and certainly the insights that you can get from students in these programs are, much more valuable than what you can get from anywhere else. And of course, thanks to all our viewers. You can be sure to watch all our panel sessions with both students and administrators from many top schools around the world at poetsandquants.com. There you'll also find a lot of more informative articles, profiles on MBA candidates, and gauging kind of their chances of what it takes to get into those target schools, and school profiles on what each program is known for, and so much more. And so until next time, see you later. Thank you.